What's wrong with you people?
Welcome to Not Another Baptist Podcast. My name is Matt Hensley, the pastor of Plymouth Park Baptist Church here in Irving, Texas, and I am joined from Lubbock, Texas by the one and only Dr. Kyle, non-alcoholic beerman, the rural specialist for the North American Mission Board Replant team.
Indeed.
Replant is much easier to say than rural.
Rural replant.
Remember my daughter's trying to say rural or whatever? I think we even had her on the podcast trying to
see, the good thing is that when you're actually in a rural area, you just say rural. And it's kind of R-O-O-L, rural.
Yeah. Can't say that anymore. I've been invited to sort of your neck of the woods, Concho Valley. Does that sound right?
I mean, if like 3 hours away. I mean, it's Texas, so that's basically next door, right?
I mean, you could go from like Boston to the corner of Maine in that time.
That is true.
If not less. But anyway, for a rural church revitalization conference, and I was invited to do this when I was still in Collin County, and then I took this job that's very much in an urban center area.
Center of the urban sprawl.
I said, hey, I may not be your guy anymore. Well, you wrote the book on it. I said, even then, I co-wrote it. And so, no, we really want you to come. I was like, okay, so I'll be there. But, at the end of the day, really some of the principles, all that kind of stuff, stay the same. And at the end of the day, you got to preach faithfully, preach well, improve your preaching, all of that kind of stuff. Focus on prayer, all of the stuff that we know as y'all highlight often: preach, pray, love, and stay.
Yep.
Love your people well, lead them well, stay. Don't just get out of there the moment Aunt Sue starts chewing you out for changing the thermostat. But Kyle, we're not talking about that. Saturday morning, actually, I got up. I got my oldest daughter, who is a huge Texas Rangers fan, in that she has like maybe 3 players. And to my credit, she knows Seager, Simeon, in this quote, I have quoted it multiple times, but the steroid guy. I'm just saying. Just saying, one of your people get them.
For those who do not follow the Texas Rangers closely, I believe she would be. I would believe.
Who would that be? Wyatt Langford, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. No, that would be Adolis Garcia, and I know because you've told me before that you believe that he is on the roids, just because his biceps are the size of my head,
and his temper, and his head, neck, and. Anyway, how did he do in the home run derby?
Not as well as we'd hoped. Not as well as we'd hoped.
I got her. Saturdays I do Saturday daughter dates, and so we went to Mama's Daughter's Diner, which is a weird place to go to take daddy daughter date. But anyway, we went there, and I said, "Hey, put on your Ranger stuff. Like, we might run into somebody." Like, I didn't tell her a whole lot. And then, she had to know something was up. And then we just started driving. And suddenly we were in Houston, Texas. And we park in front of Minute Maid Park and the True & Greater juice box.
Egg barn. Okay.
Anyway, we park, and it's like 11 o'clock, dude. I was so early. And I'm not going to walk around downtown Houston with my daughter and with no 9mm. Anyway, I'm just like, I'm going to walk around and see what's to eat. And there was Biggio's, which is Craig Biggio's restaurant right around the corner. So we ate there. And then we got in line to get in. I got still tipping Yordan Alvarez bobblehead. Caden's got it too. So I'll throw that one on eBay. Anyway, we got into the game, watched the game, and these two offensive juggernauts had bases loaded multiple times. Like, I think
Yep,
3 or
it's
4
true.
times. At any point, this game could have been like an NCAA, like, football match with, like, 44-41 or something. I don't know if that's even a plausible score. But no. The entire time, I'm like, "This stupid thing is going to go to extra innings." Now, I go to bed early, and I'm 3.5 hours away,
Yeah,
1. Number
yeah.
2, I know how the Astros do in the extra inning. We we don't do well. Statistically, we don't do well. Like, the guy that hits the trash can, obviously, he has an early bedtime, so he leaves, so it's like we don't know what is coming. Anyway, it's horrible. So I knew what was coming, and I knew now I'm gonna be tired and cranky, and my daughter is inevitably going to be reminding me of the story the entire way. Now, I say all of that to say, yes, the Rangers won, and
Yeah, they
yeah,
did.
the entire drive home, she is reminding me of that fact. What was the score again? I don't recall. 2-1
But
and that sort of
not
deal. So I
not only
spent
that, the Rangers won the series.
anyway, I spent hundreds of dollars to go and to eat and to enjoy that time with my daughter. She had a wonderful time and it was great. However, while I was there, I got a text from Zach Delph that there's just been an apparent attempt
Yeah.
on former President Trump's life. So I'm in the game. You know how it is. You're in a stadium, fans actually go to the Astros games. And cell phone service not always great, but I'm finally getting stuff to load and it's like we don't really know what's happening. Did he fall? Did he get hit? Did
Yeah.
he get shot? Whatever, and it's all just kind of a jumbled mess of everything. And I'm like, "Oh man." So I had my like we're watching the game, but I had my phone up like watching it happen and like I
Yeah.
couldn't hear anything obviously, but I'm just watching it. So then the people behind me, I'm in the front row of the Crawford boxes, like, "Dude, what happened?" And I was like, "I don't know. I'm trying to figure it out myself." So they're getting on. So basically, the Crawford boxes at Minute Maid Park, thanks to me, knew what had happened. We figured it out right
Yeah.
away. All of that said, that leads us to this. Something like that happens Saturday evening, late in the week, whatever it might be. News is scarce. We don't always know, but it's something that everybody knows happened.
Yeah.
And the next day or a couple of days later, you're going to gather for worship as the pastor of those people. And every member of your congregation has seen it, has perhaps made an opinion about it, is thinking about it even now. And whatever it might be, good thing, bad thing, whatever it is, something like this was, millimeters, inches away from being an incredibly different day.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so when you have that and all of those feelings going around, you enter that pulpit and they ain't thinking about what's about to come out of your mouth in terms
Yeah,
of.
that's right.
So how what we're
Well,
going to talk about today
and
a little bit is with the
there's a
elephant.
phenomenon that we have now that we didn't have. So this is the first time there's been something like this in our lifetime, right? Neither one of us were alive when Reagan was shot in '81. So this is the first time this that there's been an assassination attempt like this on a presidential candidate in our lifetime. And now you have this phenomenon of 24-hour news cycles, right? And social media. So not only are your people thinking about this during their service, but there's probably a few who are like have Twitter or X or whatever it is it's called now pulled up on their phone during the worship service. So I mean, it's they're seeing the reaction to this, and I mean, yeah, you're talking what 18 hours or so. I mean, by the time you gather together, and so it's fresh, still processing what happened, and like I said, some people in your pews are literally watching the reactions in real time during your worship service. So I, I don't think this is for us, like this wasn't a situation where we completely changed the worship gathering, right? Like where our pastor rewrote his sermon. Um, but I do think that's something that most pastors probably addressed at least at some point, maybe during a pastoral prayer, time, right? Just to try to wrap our heads around what happened, praising God for what didn't happen. Um, but yeah, helping our people walk through kind of these moments, right? And look, I mean, in the last few years, there have been a lot, right? The kind of these big moments. Obviously, COVID was when we had to figure out how to disciple folks through. But you had all the race riots that summer, right? You had, I mean, there's been so much that's happened in the last few years, and then this is kind of at least at this point, the pinnacle, right? We've got to help our folks process and still not live in fear, right? But live in faith that God's in control, that we can trust Him. Um, and again, this is one of those things. Regardless of where the political bent is in your congregation, this is a big deal, and I think this shook a lot of people, even those who would never consider voting for Donald Trump. It shook them, because I don't know, something about in 2024, we just don't expect that somebody's going to take a shot, right? That somebody would have the opportunity to take a shot.
What I was going to add is, like, with an elephant in the room, the more you leave it unaddressed, the bigger it gets.
Yep.
And so it's one of those kind of carefully navigated things, because a few things can be the case, especially with something that you deal with politics, of course, is several things can happen at once. One is everything we saw and were told and everything else could have been completely and totally true, and then later could be untrue or whatever else. Like, it we even saw headlines of he fell, or that others posited that it actually wasn't the bullet, but it was likely glass from his teleprompter. Like, different things like that are going to change all of it. And so it's like, when you get in there and say, blank blank blank, this happened, and you want to make some opinions and thoughts about whatever it might be, that's probably going to steer you into some potentially muddy waters. The other thing to remember is the people in your congregation, hopefully not a single one of them, in the case of the issue at hand, were happy it happened. Hopefully. But at the same time, you do have, as you touched on, you have Republicans and perhaps Democrats. And even if you don't have necessarily Democrats, you have plenty of Republicans that were not fans of President Trump when he was in office, or before, or were never Trump, whatever it might be. And so there's a lot of thoughts and all of that kind of stuff. And then you have those that are incredibly appreciative of him and all of that kind of stuff. And so you have all of those different opinions that are in the room. And when I gathered with our people on Sunday, we had one of our other pastors was going to do the call to worship. And then, of course, the sermon. I'm kind of a big proponent of, once you really kind of lean into worship, let that be it. Like, don't go back to Mama's Day, Father's Day, whatever it might be, like that kind of deal. We talked about that recently. But for me, I thought, this is a time that, for lack of a better word, the captain needs to be at the helm. And so I pulled together some scriptures and just said, and actually, after I read some of those scriptures, I said, in a room this size, there are many different political opinions, voting preferences, and so forth. But I believe and know we are all of the same mind that what happened yesterday was a gut punch, was abhorrent, and is not the path that we want for our country. No, as Abraham Lincoln said, with malice towards none, with charity for all, with firmness in the right, as God gives us to see the right, let us strive on to finish the work we are in. And I would like to take that first step by prayer. And I invited them to just join me in prayer. And at that time, we prayed Thanksgiving that former President Trump was, survived. We prayed Thanksgiving for the Secret Service and security detail officers that, rushed to his aid. I didn't make comments about the lack of all of the stuff that we're kind of seeing now, and why somebody could be up there for an hour, be known and spotted and everything else, and all of that still taking, like, that's not your place or the time to go into some of those kind of details.
Right.
But we can go with the facts that ultimately, at the end of the day, former President Trump was spared. That obviously is not a coincidence that, providentially, whatever you want to say, however you want to lean into that, your theological persuasion there, clearly no accident in the sense of moving his head and all of that being avoided, in a completely different day being avoided. And we can thank God for that. And then shifted to a prayer of supplication for just help us as a nation, heal some of this division and the rhetoric that we hear, and where everybody's our enemy and all of that kind of stuff. And so that was how we addressed that elephant in the room, because if you don't, everybody there knows it's there. That's why it's called an elephant in the room. And if you just ignore it, it's more distracting than if you just go ahead and dig in and say, hey, this was wrong, this was whatever, and offer your people some words of hope and some things to do. Like, nothing you can do about something that happened in Pennsylvania, but there is something still as Christians that you can do here in Irving or there in Lubbock to make this place a little better place, a little kinder, a little more godly, and so forth, and shared how we're ambassadors and all of that. So, Kyle, any other thoughts?
Yeah, I would just say this is part of the stewardship of leadership, right? Is helping your people think through this, because if you don't, someone else will. Fox News or CNN or MSNBC or whoever they're watching is going to tell them what to think about these things. That doesn't mean that you've got to become a political pundit from the pulpit. I would absolutely caution against that. But there are moments that you can help disciple your people, and quite frankly, in a world where there's not a whole lot of level-headed thinking in social media and stuff, you can provide at least some of that and help your people. There's a lot of talk right after this about bringing down the temperature of the political discourse in our country, which absolutely needs to happen. And so, Pastor, to use the old kind of cliche, you can either throw gasoline on a fire or you can throw water on a fire. Yeah. You can be a part of helping your people understand what it means to bring down that temperature a little bit. Maybe even causing them to rethink maybe a social media post that they would make, right? And so when it comes to something's happened, they're angry, they're ready to hit send. It could be that voice in their head saying, maybe I shouldn't do this, is yours, Pastor. All right, so don't be afraid. Steward this responsibility well.
Be their Jiminy Cricket.
Be their Jiminy Cricket.
So, Kyle, as we close, what are your conspiracy thoughts? I'm just kidding. Until next time, may your coffee be as black as night and as bold as the gospel you declare. Remember, it is a privilege to pastor your people, but it also means that you got to lead them. And to lead them, sometimes you have to have those difficult conversations. So have those difficult conversations, and sometimes that means maybe shifting how you wanted to start the service, whatever it may be, and feel like it just puts a weird feeling in the room when you do it, and it's just uncomfortable, all of that. Trust God, share it with grace, and then move on to worshiping Jesus. So have a great day, and we will see you, or talk to your ear holes next Friday.
What's wrong with you people?